What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, you just, don't know a good thing when you see it. So I decided to maintenance all of my wigs on the same day. So we just rocking with the natural bun. Okay, that's what we're doing. You guys, as you can tell by the title, today's story is about a man by the name of Joseph Ball, who was a very interesting guy. Joseph Douglas Ball was born on January 5th, 1896, making him a Capricorn. You know, the kind that's always in the comment section saying, "It's never us." One of them. I love y'all though. Capricorns can be a little toxic, but you're my girls or whatever. My girls and my guys. We still love you, even though it hurts. He was born the second of 8 children to Frank and Elizabeth Ball, and they were an extremely wealthy family. See, back in the day, before they even started having all of these children, Frank had borrowed some money from the bank. With that money, he opens up a factory processing cotton, and then right after this, like the train station, like a train track is brought to town, and this has a direct effect on how successful his business becomes. Like, business just booms after that. He takes money from that and starts to dabble in real estate, purchasing and selling properties throughout the San Antonio area. And then once his real estate is doing well also, he goes and opens up a general store. And so that, of course, brings in a lot more money. And so even though him and his wife Elizabeth had all of these kids, they could for sure afford to take care of all of them. And they would flex on all the other families on the block because they were the first family on the block to have an all-stone house. Little Joe, he kept to himself and rarely participated in any activities that involved the other kids. He just did not want to be bothered. He preferred to spend a lot of his time alone, fishing and just outdoors exploring all by himself. And nobody thought it was really odd because it's like, if you share a home space with the 9 other people, of course anybody would prefer or appreciate some solitude. So they just let Joe wander about and do his little thing without really, thinking it was odd or him being questioned or pestered at all. Now, as he gets older, his interest shifts to firearms and he loves them. As soon as he is old enough to practice his marksmanship, he begins dedicating hours practicing and perfecting his skill, and he became good at it rather quickly. Child, they say he could shoot a bird off a telephone line. And y'all know mother does not make the news, she just reports it, so that's just what they said. I wasn't there. At the age of 21, he decides that, it's a little boring around here and we got this war going on. I'm just going to go off and get me some excitement and join the military. He enlists in the army, goes and stands on the front lines over in Europe, survives the war, obviously. And in 1919, he is given an honorable discharge. He decides to return to Texas to work for his father, but that does not last long because he had no interest in the family business. It was boring to him. It brought him no excitement, no thrill, and that's what he felt like he needed in his life. Without it, there was a void. And Joe was interested in being a businessman, but not with the boring stuff. At the time, there is a huge demand for illegal whiskey and beer, and so he decides that he's going to go around town selling it out of the trunk of his car, which he does, and he does exceptionally well for some time. But the same as with his previous endeavors, he does not do this for long at all. Now, considering how much he knew about business and how much he had learned about liquor, being a little bootlegger, he decides that he's going to take those two, marry them together, and do something that's legal and would probably bring him success in the long run. He goes and opens up a little tavern that he calls the Sociable Inn. I'll insert a picture of his little tavern here, child, and him in his little shorts. The rear of the tavern, it consisted of 2 bedrooms. He slept in one. Up front, there was a bar area. There was a piano for people to come and live perform. And there was also this separate room with tables where men would come and enjoy cockfights. Now, you interpret that as you wish. Even though his business was doing well, he still felt like it was lacking something. He needed a gimmick of some sort or something that could draw in the attention of the public and more customers. And at this point, he decides, what better way to do this than to install a live alligator pit. He has a huge hole dug out right behind the bar. He cements it. He fills it up a little bit with water, not completely, but enough for them to roll around in. He puts up a 10-foot tall fence to keep the alligators in, child, and the people out, and throws in 5 live alligators, 1 huge alligator and then 4 smaller alligators all around. His plan worked. Hundreds of people flocked in to see his new pets, especially on Saturdays, when he would then take a live animal, like this live stray animal that he found somewhere, be it a cat, a rat, a dog, a raccoon, anything that he could catch, and toss it into the pit, and people would watch it attack this animal. They were very entertained by this. Now, to do most of his dirty work, he had hired a black man by the name of Clifton Wheeler, and he treated him horribly. Joe would reportedly get really, really drunk, take his pistol, and then shoot at Clifton's feet and order him to dance just to entertain himself while also dodging these bullets. He had that Tory Lane spirit on him, child. Just terrible. Now, unlike Joe, Clifton was not born to a rich family who had all of the money. He needed money, in fact, to take care of his own family. And he was terrified of Joe. So he continued to do the work and stay out of Joe's way the best that he could. Now, Joe had also hired the youngest and prettiest girls in town to come in and be waitresses and also serve as an additional attraction to his alligators. None of the girls ever seemed to stay long, but Joe always had a reason as to why they suddenly just vanished. And their stories were always the same, that they were just simply drifting through town looking for a quick buck, and this was just pretty much like a pit stop for them. In 1934, Joe meets and employs a woman by the name of Minnie Gotthard, aka Big Minnie. People called her that at her request. It was no shade. She wanted to be called Big Minnie, and there are no pictures of her. I could not find any anywhere. Minnie was reportedly a very abrasive, very bossy woman. She was very outspoken and had a very strong personality, and a lot of people did not like this. A lot of the patrons felt like she was rude and obnoxious. None of Joe's friends liked her. They would always tell him that she's bad for business because the customers don't like her, and if he wanted to keep them, he should let her go. But unlike everybody else, Joe really liked Minnie, so much so that he gives her a little bit of authority over the other employees. She is running the bar, and the two also begin to date. And they date for 3 years. Minnie loved her some Joe, and Joe loved him some Minnie. That is until about 3 years into their relationship, when Joe sets his eyes on one of the newer, much younger waitresses, Dolores. Now, he continues his relationship with Minnie, but he begins to see Dolores behind Minnie's back. Or you know how these men do sometimes. But child, when you all work together in the same establishment, it's only so much sneaking and creeping that you can do before you found out. Minnie was no fool, and when she found out that he was seeing this young girl behind her back, of course she questioned him about it, but she didn't go anywhere. For the most part, she just put up with it. She continues to see Joe as well, and she despises Dolores, and she uses every opportunity that she can to let that be known. Young Dolores falls madly in love with Joe, and despite how many times her loved ones told her that she needed to leave him alone, that he was not the man for her, nor was it a good idea for her to date him, he was her man, and she was going to stick beside him. She did not care about any of the things that they were talking about. She continued to be with him and defend their relationship, even after he threw a bottle, hit her in the face, and left a scar from her eye all the way down to her neck. And things only become even more complicated when 22-year-old Hazel joins the staff down at the Sociable Inn, catches the attention of Joe, and child, it goes from a love triangle to a damn love square. Now, Joe had done okay juggling just the 2 women, but things were getting a little bit toxic and chaotic when he now had 3 women to juggle, all of them in the same establishment. Like, it's only so much scheduling you can do to help that situation. There was drama on top of drama all the time until the summer of 1937, when he seemingly catches a bit of relief after Minnie decides to just move away without any kind of warning, without her telling anybody of her plans to just up and leave. She just, one day she was there and the next day she wasn't. When people question Joe about Minnie's whereabouts, he very nonchalantly tells them that Minnie has run away. Minnie has become pregnant, and it's by a black man. So she wanted to run off, have her little black baby in secret and in peace. And she was ashamed and didn't want anybody to know. So that's why she didn't tell anybody before she left. Whether people believe this story or if they were just happy to see Minnie go, because she was not very well liked. She wasn't liked at all. Whichever one it was, they stopped asking questions not long after she just disappeared. Within a couple of months of Minnie skipping town, Joe marries Dolores. And then once they are married, he reveals to her his dark secret, the truth about what had happened to Minnie. She had, of course, not run off like he had told everyone. He tells Dolores that she had actually been giving him a lot of flack about his cheating with the younger girls. He had grown tired of it. He takes her to the beach, kills her, and buries her there in the sand. And he does this so that they can be together in peace. Despite the fact that Dolores had noticed that Minnie hadn't taken any of her personal belongings, all of her stuff was still at the house. She claims that she did not believe Joe when he told this story, and the two never speak about it again. But she does speak about it with several of her other friends, telling them what he had told her, but then still claiming not to have believed him. Roughly 4 months go by. The two are living in newlywed bliss. And then suddenly Dolores is involved in a very tragic car accident in which she loses her left arm. Rumors, of course, began to fly, child. They were saying that Joe had torn her arm off, that he had fed it to the alligator. Some people were claiming that the alligator had torn it off. It was all of these wild stories, and they really bothered Dolores. She constantly tried to convince the public that none of this was true. Like, all of it is just a wild fairy tale, child. Especially about Joe being responsible for her arm being lost, because she said that he was nothing but this supportive, loving spouse. But they had seen him hit the girl in the head with the bottle, so they knew that he definitely had that Ike Turner spirit on him, and he would probably tear her arm off. So it was really difficult for her to convince the town that it was not true that he had done this. And then all of a sudden, 3 months after this accident, Dolores goes missing, just as Minnie had disappeared without a trace. And if that's not odd enough, Hazel, who he had continued to see all of this time, she then goes missing as well. Despite the fact that Joe's staff continued to disappear, as did the women in his life, his business continued to flourish. He was bringing in a lot of money. He seemed very happy. And his beloved alligators, child, they were fat and healthy and well taken care of. And he was very protective of them. He didn't play about his babies. They were like his children. Joe loved them. The people, they seemingly loved the alligators because they continued to draw in the attention of the public and bring in customers. One of which being one of Joe's neighbors, who had reportedly complained about the foul smell coming from the tavern. Now, this neighbor claimed that the smell was that of rotting flesh and that local authorities might need to go check it out. Joe, of course, catches wind of this, finds out, and he is pissed about it. He goes over to the neighbor with his gun and tells him that what he was smelling was most likely the alligator's food. And if he did not want to become alligator food himself, he would keep his mouth closed and mind his business. But unfortunately for Joe, that's not the only person that is all up in his business at the time. You see, Minnie's family, they have not given up the search for their loved one. They want answers. They have not been able to contact Minnie or locate her since she seemingly ran off to have a little black baby. And so now that months have passed, they decide to escalate it to the local authorities. When they do, they make it very clear that they feel like Joe had something to do with this, that he was not being completely truthful about where she was. Being that she was Joe's lover and his secretary, child, they go out and they speak with him, they question him, and he continues to stick with the same story that he always told. She had gotten pregnant, It was by a black man. She ran off to have the child. Without any evidence of foul play or wrongdoing, all they can do is question him. And eventually they stopped going out there to ask the man questions because he claimed to have no more information. It was a waste of time. Eventually he is completely cleared as a suspect in her disappearance. And they just leave the man alone and advise the family that they should do the same. Then a few months go by, and again there is another family, this time that of a 23-year-old girl by the name of Julia, down at the sheriff's station looking for their daughter, who was last seen working down at the sociable end for Joe. Once again, they come out and they question Joe about this girl's disappearance, and he claims that the young girl was having a lot of personal issues and that she had told him that she wanted to run off and start a new life. Again, there was no evidence of any wrongdoing, any foul play, none of the things. So all they can do is take his word and leave the premises. If Julia had really skipped town to start a new life, she had left the same as Minnie, without taking any of her belongings. So when they go out to speak with the roommate claims that Julia was not unhappy at all and that she had no knowledge of her wanting a different or new life. She didn't seem sad or any of that. She just got ready for work one day, left, and never returned. With this information, they go back and speak with Joe. And this time he offers them a little bit more insight, some things that he had just simply forgotten about. He claims that Julia was in distress that day. She was desperate for a change and that she actually was into it with the roommate. They were having all of these personal problems, not getting along, and she was desperate for a change. And so he lends her $500 for her to just leave town that day. Now, according to him, he hadn't even seen her since. Didn't know where she was going. She just left with the money. Now, do they believe him? Of course not. But they don't have any solid evidence that proves that what he's saying is a lie. And so they just have to take his statement and go. Meanwhile, Joe's employees continue to disappear. Over the next 3 months, 2 more of his employees vanish. Now they decide to bring in Joe for a little bit of questioning. They figure maybe if we question him down to the station, apply a little bit more pressure, we can get him to crack. But he goes down there and maintains his innocence, that he has nothing to do with any of these disappearances, that there was nothing foul going on. They had simply just left town. They release him and dedicate their time to finding something that could link him to these disappearances, and over the next couple of months can't find a shred of evidence. None that proves that he had done anything to any of them. On September 23rd, they finally catch a break. That nosy neighbor who had claimed to smell the stench of rotting flesh coming from the tavern, he comes forward and tells the sheriffs that he had seen with his own 2 eyes Joe cutting the flesh off of human bone and feeding it to his alligators. And at this very same time, another man comes forward and tips them off about Joe having this foul-smelling barrel behind his sister's barn. He insists that it is something dead inside, something or someone. The deputies take this report very seriously, but unfortunately they don't move quick enough. They wait until the following morning to go out to the barn to investigate, and by that time, the barrel is gone. Now they decide before they leave the property to just try their luck. Question Joe's sister and see if she can confirm that a barrel was in fact there. And to their surprise, she actually corroborates the man's claim that yeah, that funky ass barrel was here just last night, but I don't know what happened to it. Like, I woke up and it was gone. At this point, they decide to go pay Joe a little visit. And they let him know, look, we know about the barrel. They let him know that he is being taken down to the station for further questioning. And unlike the last times when he was kind of defensive and telling them like, look, I don't know anything, this is it, he very calmly tells them that he will go down to the station with them and answer any questions, but he asks if he could first close down the tavern. He didn't want to just leave it open. So they're like, okay, of course, sure, no problem. Now they go have a seat, but they keep their eye on him, keep a close eye on him, because they don't need Joe trying to jump from a window and ricochet down the side of the building and take off running into the forest. That's the last thing they want to happen. Joe goes over to the bar, takes a beer, chugs it down quicker than anybody has ever chugged a beer before. Afterward, he goes over to the cash register, hits that little button y'all be hitting that makes the drawer pop out. But when the drawer opens, he pulls out a little pistol, points it toward his own chest. The deputies are yelling like, no, don't do it, stop. He does not listen. He pulls the trigger. Now that was it for little Joe. They called for backup. They called for, of course, a medic. And then they began to take a look around the property. They find rotting flesh all around the alligator pit. They find an axe with both blood and guts and hair on it. And to the investigators, it was rather clear what was going on here. Joe was responsible for the disappearances, and he was taking his victims and feeding them to his pet alligators. Now, with Joe on the highway to hell, child, they only had one other person who spent enough time with him that they felt like they could question about what was going on here. And that person was Clifton Wheeler. Clifton had been at the tavern working pretty much since it had opened. He spent the most time with Joe. He worked the closest with him. And if all of this was going on, he definitely had seen something. Now, initially, he claims that he hadn't seen a thing. He didn't know what was going on. He had never seen nothing, hadn't heard nothing. He was in it. He was not trying to be in it. Now, I don't know what changed his mind, y'all, but something does. And he comes back and tells them, you know what? Okay, I do know some things. I will tell you what I know. And y'all, what he knew was a lot. The first thing that he speaks about is Hazel. He says that Hazel was last on his list as far as like the women that he was dating, and then she had begun dating another man. She had a man that was taking her serious, putting her first, and so she wanted to go off, move away, and live a life with him. She really did want to start over with him. But before she had gotten the opportunity to do so, she had confronted Joe and accused him of killing Minnie, and he didn't like that very much. The confrontation results in him flying into this rage and killing her too. Now, Clifton had actually been the one to help him move the barrel the night that it had gone missing. According to him, Joe had called him. He had obviously been drinking really heavily, and tells him to get a bunch of towels, a bunch of alcohol to drink, and meet him at his sister's barn. When he got there, he tells him he needs him to help him move this barrel. He helps him move it. They take it down to the river. And once he opens up the barrel and sees Hazel inside, he is like, oh no. Oh no, baby, I cannot be involved in any of the things. Joe orders him to at gunpoint. He tells him that he wants to cut up the remains and then bury them, and that Clifton is going to help him whether he wants to or not. Now, he says that the two of them spent hours doing so, and anytime like the smell or the sight would become too much for either of them, they would take a break, and Joe would just tell him like just to drink. That's what the alcohol was for, like just take you a couple shots, regroup, and let's get back to it. And so that's how their night went. Now, he offers to take them down near the San Antonio River where they had left Hazel to prove it to them and show them exactly where she was. She was not buried that deep, and so it does not take them that long at all to bring her up. And everything is there except her head. When they ask where it was, he points to a nearby campfire and says that Joe had started the fire and decided to just throw it in there. They take a stick and they poke around in the ashes, and sure enough, they find remnants of like jawbone, teeth, and skull fragments. Next, he tells them what had happened to Minnie. According to him, Minnie had found out that she was in fact pregnant, but she was pregnant by Joe. And Joe liked Dolores more. He wanted to marry Dolores, as he went on to do. He felt like a baby would probably interfere with him being with Dolores, and so he didn't want anything to stand in his way. The story about what he had done to her that he told to Dolores was actually true, and afterward he had again called on Clifton to help him clean up. Clifton then takes them to the beach to show them exactly where she was in the sand. And you know what's really weird? I found this to be weird. So many people showed up to watch her be exhumed from the sand. Like, look at this. They just hold their nose and stare. How do you have the stomach for that? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was a little strange. Honey, they're on a roll now, so they're pushing for more answers regarding all of these other employees of his that have gone missing and no one has ever heard from again. Clifton tells them that he is for real unknowledgeable about any of those people. And he doesn't even know about what happened to Dolores. He has no clue. He insists that everything that he has told them up to this point is everything that he knows, for real this time. When they ask him if he had ever witnessed him feeding anybody to the alligators, he tells them no, that he had never seen that happen. While they were searching the tavern, they also find a scrapbook that belonged to Joe that contained these pictures of all these different women, most of which who had worked at the tavern and went missing, of course. And that was pretty much the full extent of everything that they found as far as evidence. But they continue their search for the rest of his victims and these missing women. And in an odd twist of events, they locate Dolores. But when they do, sis is very much alive. She really had run off to San Diego to start herself a new life. And 2 weeks after that, they locate another one of the missing women who had turned out to do the exact same thing. As it turns out, none of the flesh that was found along the alligator pit was human. It was all animal. Honey, neither was the hair and the guts on the axe. None of it. Now, when they question Miss Dolores about her old man, she is like, okay, yeah, sure, he did, kill 2 people, but he wasn't no monster. He never would have put anybody in the alligator pit. He just was not that sick in the head. He wasn't a monster. Clifton Wheeler, he faces charges for his involvement in the crimes, or the cleaning up of the crimes. He is sentenced to 2 years for his involvement, and he serves out his time. After he gets out, he decides he is going to open up his own bar without the murder and the alligators and all of that. But people had not forgotten over the past 2 years what had happened and his involvement. And child, they show up and harass him. The media, they come out and constantly hound him at his establishment. He had more spectators and people that just came out to chastise him and talk about what had happened than he did customers. And so his little bar don't stay open long. He packs up his things. He skips town, child, in search of a new life. He is never heard from or seen again by the local townspeople. They don't know what happened to him. As for the alligators from the pit, they were actually donated to the San Antonio Zoo. So if you went to the San Antonio Zoo around 1940, that was them. They lived out the rest of their poor little lives, continuing to be tourist attractions and spectacles. So that's sad. I wonder if they had names. Hell, they might still be there. I don't know how long alligators live. Hey Siri, how long? Girl, when you get so informal. How long do alligators live?
The average lifespan of an alligator is 40 years.
Well, hell, they don't live nearly as long as I thought they did. Yeah, they're not still there. Aside from Minnie and Hazel, there were never any more victims confirmed. There wasn't ever any other evidence uncovered that suggested that he had anything to do with any of the others that had gone missing. Nothing. So what do y'all think? Do y'all think he was really tossing people into the alligator pit? Or do you think that Joe had that old I ain't no killer but don't push me spirit on him? According to Dolores, he was the sweetest man. He never would have hurt anybody without reason to, or without being pushed to that point, which I of course don't feel like either one of those situations were justified. I don't feel like that's the point at which you were pushed to. But what about the neighbor who had claimed to have seen him in action? Was he just lying? Was he upset that sis had threatened him with the gun? What's up with that? I want to know. I'm actually quite torn because I feel like, on one hand, you can't put nothing past nobody, right? But then it's like, if that were the case and he really had done that, why wouldn't he have done that with Minnie? Why wouldn't he have done that with Hazel instead of calling on Clifton to help him? Why drag somebody else in it and risk your own freedom? Because they could tell. If I had to guess, I would say those were his only two. For me, it just doesn't make sense for him to switch up his method of disposal when the alligators are so convenient. Wait a minute, lip gloss. Which one is this? And then it says this is milky gloss. Girl, you're talking to me. Alright, that is pretty much it for this video and this story. Please don't forget to let me know what you think down below. Girl, let's talk about it. Girl ain't gal. I always say girl. Don't forget to give the video a like on your way out. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. How do I smell everything? Like a dog. Joseph Douglas born... What? Joseph Douglas... Brittney, his name was Vaughn. Joseph Douglas, oh no, eyebrow. What the hell? Before they started having all of these children. Ice, you're rude. Throughout the San Antonio. They were the first. I can't talk today and it's really annoying. Over the three. Confronted Joe and he offers to take the deputies. Child. We could look up. Switched up his method of proposal. It's for him to switch up his method of disposal. Ugh, I can't say it, Lord. Share this video with a friend or a foe or a that you don't know. Oh, bars.